welcome to the Zoology Podcast, hosted by me, Samuel Richardson. On this month's podcast, we'll be looking into the concept of rewilding. We will try to understand what it is, what it aims to do, and where it has currently been implemented. If this sounds interesting to you, then please enjoy the episode. Many areas on the planet have been devastated by human activity, be it from constructing dams which alter an area's ecosystem, to fully converting one type of habitat to another, for example, changing woodlands to grasslands or grasslands to urban landscapes. These types of human activities have had a massive impact upon wildlife, ecosystems, and their services. For example, the changing of woodlands to grasslands means that all those woodland-based species either have to move location or face local extinction, while the simple removal of vegetation can affect soil erosion, especially near water sources, which will mean you will get more frequent flooding. The end result of these activities are wild areas being severely restricted and isolated from each other, while human settlements and infrastructure are placed under greater strain from ecosystem degradation. An answer to these problems advocated by institutions like the United Nations is rewilding. But what is rewilding? Well, in 1967, the ecologist Robert H. MacArthur and the naturalist Edward O. Wilson released a book called The Theory of Island Biogeography. This book stressed the importance of considering a geographical area's size and isolation when assessing wildlife conservation strategies, because protected areas which are small and isolated are vulnerable to rapid extinction. Then in 1985, the Society for Conservation Biology was created and began to place a focus on reducing habitat loss and fragmentation. This ultimately developed into a loose concept which features both large-scale and small-scale conservation efforts, with a particular focus on reducing human management over long time periods, while simultaneously minimizing environmental risk through strengthening ecological systems, while also protecting and providing ecological corridors between protected sites to provide a habitat for keystone species and predators. Woo, that's a lot. Now if you think that is a mess of a definition, then please listen to my next podcast on my issues with rewilding. But anywho, rewilding has been steadily gaining more attention from both small-scale and large-scale organisations. For example, small landholders benefit from rewilding because they are incentivised, sometimes monetarily, to not manage parts of their land, while large NGOs like the International Union for the Conservation of Nature perceive it as a way to achieve their mission goals of, unsurprisingly, conserving nature. The UN even released a report in June 2021 on ecosystem restoration in which it stated that rewilding should be used as one of several methods to restore habitat in over 1 billion hectares. That's an area larger than all of China. Now that's an impressive goal, but what is currently being done to achieve this? Well, many projects are happening all over the globe, and we will cover some of these, but two current projects stick out as the most famous. The first is in North America, where there is the Yellowstone to Yukon Conservation Initiative. This initiative aims to connect and then protect 2,000 miles of habitat along the spine of the Rocky Mountains, incorporating and connecting the greater Yellowstone ecosystem with Canada's Yukon territory. The second famous project is in Europe, known as the European Rewilding Initiative. This aims to create a European greenbelt, or in other words, creating an unbroken wildlife corridor. This corridor aims to stretch the length of the Iron Curtain. That's from Russia's Barents Sea in northern Europe, across the Baltic Sea, down through central Germany, around eastern Austria, and then into the Balkans, ending at a split at both the Adriatic and Black Sea. Overall, the European Greenbelt will run along 24 countries and cover over 7,767 miles, or 12,500 kilometres of land. Now these are both two immensely large initiatives, but I think rewilding projects are perhaps better viewed at the level in which fauna and flora are active, at a more local level. So it's no surprise then that there exist many more small-scale local rewilding projects than either national or international. So let's take a look at a couple of these and see what they aim to achieve. The Pacific Northwest of America has seen the removal of many small dams. This has been done in an effort to specifically restore salmon population, but is expected to also help to recover other aquatic species also. However, many issues exist when removing a dam that, if not addressed, can cause a devastating effect on local wildlife. A key issue is dealing with the build-up of sediments that are caused when damming a river. If a dam is just removed and the sediment is allowed to wash through the river, it can easily fill in the spawning beds of fish like salmon, therefore decimating future populations. Then you also have the issue of vast quantities of water being released into an unprepared river system. This can cause damage and flooding to the surrounding habitats and has potential to kill or displace many terrestrial species. And then another risk is stopping the industrial runoff from the materials used to dismantle the dam. If you use, for example, explosives to blow up a dam, then obviously the materials from which you will use will wash down into the river, and these can negatively affect wildlife. Even if you manage to evade all of these negatives, because obviously rewilding is a long-term project and not a short-term project, then you still have to make sure that enough food is present for the wildlife populations to rebound to pre-human interference levels, which paradoxically means humans might need to be involved to supply such food until the new ecosystem is stable. Okay, now let's head down into South America. Brazil's Tijuca National Park has an issue. It has become heavily fragmented due to past human activity. Now I think the Brazilians have used rewilding here in quite a smart way. They have highlighted a problem, that being the fragmented forest, and have identified that the forest lacks many large or intermediate-sized seed dispersers. So instead of hiring expensive human labour to plant trees and other vegetation, the authorities of the park have used their brains. They have reintroduced red-humped agouti and brown howler monkeys between 2010 and 2017. These species were once native to the area and are known seed dispersers due to their diets partly consisting of fruit. Now we just have to hope that these species will deposit seeds in the fragmented areas of the forest, instead of staying in the already forested areas, which obviously provide more protection to these animals from predators. Okay, now let's hop over the Atlantic and finish by seeing what rewilding is happening in Europe. Starting in 2011, the Rewilding Europe initiative set out to rewild 1 million hectares of land, which is slightly more land than all of Cyprus. This, however, is spread out all over Europe, from the western Iberia Peninsula to the Velebit Mountains of Croatia, the Carpathians, and the Danube Delta. This project mostly focuses on converting abandoned farmland back into a more natural habitat, and greatly focuses on reintroducing species which are still present in Europe, but have gone extinct in much of their former range. This includes animals such as the Iberian and Eurasian lynx, the grey wolf, and the European brown bear. They don't just focus on reintroducing predators, however, they also aim to reintroduce herbivores such as the Iberian ibex, European bison, and the red deer. They even hope to reintroduce our avian friends, such as the griffon vulture and the great white pelican. Now, unfortunately, they miss many reptiles and amphibian species, and the initiative is even quite a bit controversial, as they have plans to reintroduce non-native species into Europe. Overall, small-scale rewilding efforts are generally well regarded, and have greatly increased the popularity of rewilding as a concept. However, as rewilding has become more popular, it has also come under more criticism from academics, conservationists, government officials, and working people such as farmers. If you'd like to hear my personal issues with rewilding, or hope to gain a better insight into why rewilding is seen as a controversial practice, please listen to my next podcast, which deals with exactly this. But in the meantime, thank you for listening to this episode of the Zoology Podcast. And can you think of any area near you that could benefit from being a little more wild?